What is going on, everybody? KD here, and welcome back to the 25th official episode of the King Darius Experience, where our awakening and our empowerment today is coming by way of learning how to be a self-sustaining creator. So in the last episode, we talked about the creator's economy and how in this day and age, in the times that we're going through with all of this division, all of this uncertainty, all of these injustices, all of these systematic, just foundational chinks in the armor and breaks and things that just don't work holistically in totality in a way that's fair and beneficial to everybody, it's more important now than it ever has been to become self-sustaining and somewhat autonomous to the things that are around you. Obviously, it's unavoidable and unrealistic to expect that you can be 100% autonomous to your surroundings, to relationships, to, law and systems and economies and all of that kind of stuff. But there is a level of empowerment and awakening that you can step into that allows you to continue to spend your only currency as a creator, which is your freedom. And the more that you spread yourself thin by activity, by time, by relationships, by obligations and expectations, the less time you have to focus on the things that you love. And contrary to popular belief, the things that you love can bring you enough money to sustain life in a fulfilling way. The problem is we add all of these unnecessary layers that take away from our ability to do exactly that. So I want to bring us out of that and continue this conversation of becoming autonomous and self-sustaining as a creator. And I want to use myself as an example because I have communicated, if you've been watching this for the last 3 to 5 episodes and haven't had the chance to catch up on the first 20 or so episodes of the King Darius Experience, you may not know that this is the third business or the third run at starting a business that I've went through. I've ran $1 million agency before. I've ran a music education company before. I've worked for, $5-10 million businesses. I've had clients that are 50 million to 100 million in gross, annual revenue and are in different industries, healthcare, technology. I've worked for media companies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what I've learned is that regardless of status, of success, of accomplishments, of goals, of objectives, and where you've been, historically in your career, let alone your personal life, you can't escape that at the end of the day, if you're not happy, if you're not fulfilled, if you're not doing the things that you love in a diversified way that isn't blown by the wind by every change that happens in this world or things that happen in our lives. I think statistically, humans go through, a major life change every 90 days or so. That statistic is always updated, but regardless, that's very fast and that's a lot of changes, quarter over quarter, year over year. So one of the things that I did coming into entrepreneurship this time is knowing that I wanted to be a musician, continue to be a producer, an instrumentalist, a lyricist. I knew that I had to create some level of diversification so that way I don't have, chinks in the armor and vulnerabilities, as well as, increase my opportunities on how I make money and lower my expectations so that way my bar isn't set so high in regards to my obligations and my expectations. So knowing that I wanted my musicianship to be forward facing, that I knew it couldn't be the only thing. It's like an iceberg, right? You see the tip, but in order for that thing to be there's probably 75% of it that's under the water, keeping the machine running and that kind of stuff. Because even in the best case scenario, right, if you happen to be in the 1% or the 3%, or even in the top 10% of talent, of skill, of opportunity, of just the right time, just the right place, just the right network, just the right connection, there's still only a moment of time, right? Like a window of opportunity in which you can be at peak performance, peak results, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to build some type of longevity to the things that you're doing. So many people can only see 6 inches in front of their face, not because they're not smart enough and not because they don't have vision. It's because they simply don't spend enough time thinking through, man, if this shifts, if this changes, if this doesn't go as planned, what's plan B? What's plan C? What is my ability to shift and be agile and diverse and my ability to keep my freedom? Gaining your freedom is extremely easy, right? If you lower your expectation and increase the amount of time you spend doing the things you love, you are going to have the ability to monetize in a way that gives you that freedom. So one of the things that I did is immediately started by making sure that I have multiple channels in which that I'm making, things happen. Leads coming in, sales coming in, conversations being had, etc. I set up Sacred Global because I knew I'm a pioneer, I'm a visionary. I have ideas all the time, and I tend to be one of those internalizer thinkers, if you will. I know that's not a word, but I internalize everything that I ideate or that I, have a moment of inspiration or innovation around, and I sit on it, I let it marinate, I shave the fat off of it, I go into the future of it, I think, ah, man, that's not going to work. Oh, I could do that. Ooh, I see that opportunity unlocking. Oh, here's the cascading effect of that. So I kind of have these out of body experiences as I'm ideating and innovating. And Sacred Global is my home for that, my hub for that, right? Sacred Media House is my essentially service to the creator world, if you will, knowing that I can't forever do this by myself, right? It'd be cool to be Eminem in 8 Mile days, but it's even cooler to be Dr. Dre decade over decade, right? As he grows his enterprise, as he gets more opportunities, as he grows his equity and overall, net worth and freedom and that kind of stuff. And obviously everybody has different walks of life and goals and objectives. So those are all personal things that you have to identify, but it shows that your ability to diversify how you approach creating is going to create longevity. It would be no service to yourself if you got your freedom as a creator, but could only keep it for 48 months, for 36 months, for 72 months. And then it hasn't even been 5 years. And statistically, you're just like everybody else and you don't have anything to show for it. I've been through that life, right? I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to make, over 7 figures. I've lived that entire life. And now granted, I have skill, I have relationships, I have foundation, all that kind of stuff. But from a forward facing perspective, I have quote unquote nothing to show for that. So I have the wisdom or the experience, if you will, to know that, man, I really have to diversify, kind of like a mutual fund, what I'm doing. So that way, if one area shifts, if the market changes, if the demand isn't there anymore, if a solution doesn't work the same way it used to, I don't have chinks in my armor and I'm not vulnerable to systematic changes, right? So this also brings me back to the nucleus or the core of my message, which is you have to be a communicator first. And I was talking to one of my buddies in the industry the other day, and he was talking about how he doesn't, pandemic aside and, despite the things happening in the world, he doesn't believe that he can really be the type of personality and brand that he wants to be without in-person experiences. So he was looking, for locations and all of that kind of stuff. So we had a great conversation, bouncing ideas off each other like we always do. And we got to this point where I was like, hey, listen, it's great that you're diversifying, but make sure you're doing it in a cascading sort of phased out way. So that way you're not vulnerable as you're diversifying what you're doing. So I gave him the example of rather than, having obligation and, obtaining capital and having expectation on what you need to do to fulfill that, and then also putting unnecessary pressure on your brand to perform once you have an in-person experience, and it always has to be filled in order for it to make, financial sense and all that kind of stuff. Why don't you create some type of mobility around your ability to have in-person experiences that has a relationship with your virtual environment, right? So as you're creating content, as you're creating products and solutions online, maybe you create like a mobile kit, and he's actually in the fitness industry, to where you can set up, you have backdrops, you have turf, you have, weights or kettlebells or, equipment that you can bring, bands, etc., to where you can go to, geographical locations around the city, and then you can respond to demand, but allow your brand awareness and your brand equity to determine how your physicality actually, manifests and where you actually show up in person and provide experiences. Because it keeps overhead low, it doesn't make you vulnerable, and it allows you to continue your ability to capture content, right? Which is the entire point of, rubbing shoulders with people and having experiences in the first place, which is why I truly believe that all roads still lead back to content, right? So what I told him is, now what you get to do is keep low overhead. You get to have, conversations and network with multiple businesses, here in Chicago and all that kind of stuff. And you get to give them a value proposition of saying, hey, in your evening hours, when you're not using your space, I have a mobile kit that I can come train, do classes, etc., etc. I can come in, be in, from 4 to 8 or, from 5 to 9, in the evening, pay you some type of, vendor fee or rent, etc., for the space. And then you get to kind of, ebb and flow and shift as the demand is there. It gives them a clear value proposition, making money in an area that they wanted on space that they already have obligation, for, from a business perspective, with their capital and their real estate. And you still get to then, when you have those moments, capture content around it, which will show, right? It will, two birds with one stone. Y'all know that's one of my favorite phrases, it will show that you still have in-person real-time context for people's needs, right? For humanity. So there's definitely important aspects to, virtual versus in-person, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it still comes back down to your ability to communicate first, and then experiences, and then virtual, and then digital marketing, and then bricks and mortar, right? Communication, comma, and then all of those things. So one of the easiest ways to check yourself on this is make sure that you have a clear nucleus. Make sure that you have a clear hub. And 99.9% of the time, 99.9% of the time, that nucleus in that hub is going to be your personal brand, or at least you being the brand ambassador or the chief evangelist of your brand or your organization, right? Or your project, because people connect with humans. And we've talked about before too, how people don't buy products and services, they buy experiences, and experiences are subject to the person experiencing that thing. So if you know that you're not going to be the one that shifts, that you're a pioneer, you're a trailblazer, you're an ideator, you're going to come up with new things in and around your industry, new innovations, then you need to be the nucleus, and you need to be the hub that is the communicator. And if you don't want to necessarily, be on camera or whatever, there's always three forms of communication: audio, visual, and textual. So you choose which one that is most effective for your specific brand voice and your identity, and that connects with your audience, and that doesn't, stifle you from having, a consistent pace and cadence to the release of your content. So I think that one thing that's extremely important is you to, taking the time to sit down and think, man, do I want a personal brand? Do I want to represent the current project that I'm working on, and kind of have these ad hoc moments that add equity to my voice and my brand from these different angles, right? I'm working on this project and I'm working on that project, and each time I'm doing them well, I'm fulfilling them well, I'm establishing them well. Therefore, it's adding diversity to even what you can talk about and what you can present, content wise. So I think all of this leads back to, right, lowering your expectations. I know it sounds like a weird thing to say, as a millennial and as the generation that wants immediate gratification, and we want our things, right? And we want them now. But you need to lower your expectation a little bit in regards to how you're going to get it and when you're going to get it. And then even further, how much of it that you're going to get, because the reality is your expectation is up here, your resources are down here. And then for whatever reason, the timeline you put on it is like way down here. So you're literally setting yourself up for failure by having unrealistic expectations and not taking enough time to strategize up front. So you need to be prepared, like we talked about 2 episodes ago, by spending the time now in that preparation stage and lowering your expectations, not to diminish what you want to do, not to take away from the effectiveness or the quality or the presentation or the, sharp edge, double-edged sword of your brand, but more so to add to your ability to continue to do it. And I will say this over and over again, doing it one time is easy. Doing it twice is pretty easy. Doing it 3 times is not as easy. Doing it 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 20, 50, 100 times over again, 365 days a year, let alone 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. You know how many people have started really dope things that had opportunity, that had funding, that had networking, that had relationships, that were perfect for the market in the times that they were, that no longer exist today? It is astronomical. And I'm sure you can Google the statistics and you would probably start, sweating or bleeding out of your eyes, because it's just ridiculous how many amazing things don't exist and how many mediocre things end up, rising to the top and sort of being this top layer of cream, because it's the second best thing to things that could have been. So don't be the thing that could have been. Don't be the creator that could have been free, right? So that is my awakening, empowering for you today. I did want to communicate something talking about, diversifying offers and all that kind of stuff. We did start at Sacred Media House a back channel for content creators, specifically podcasters and video content creators that want to do video, audio, textual off of that video content. It's called Dish Out. So if you want to dish out the right content to the right people at the right time, you can go to sacredmediahouse.com and go into the menu. It says try Dish Out right at the top. We have very affordable packages. This is not for the type of people that have the money to do full retainers. This is for people who are on a budget, but they know that content is a huge value system for their brand. So all the episodes moving forward are going to be sponsored by Dish Out as we continue to wrap our arms around the shoulders of creators and help awaken and empower them to their ability to amplify and grow their brand online. And other than that, I will see you guys in episode 26 of the King Darius Experience. Peace. Come and stand up and you can show me. Had enough of these phonies. These niggas don't know me. You spend more money on your gold teeth than you did helping out your own people. Peace of mind, yeah, we gon' get it. Equal rights, yeah, we gon' get it. True change, yeah, we gon' get it. Garner, Crawford, Brown, Ford, George Floyd, Trayvon, Parker, Laquan, Martin, Taylor, Crutcher, Sandra, Walter, Casa, Dubose, Oscar. Hold that hoe, nigga, hold that hoe. Cut that rope.